An Unending Shadow is an exhibition of artworks by prominent Australian mother and daughter artists Anne and Sophie Cape. Together they have made a series of challenging new artworks exploring the phenomena of dementia and its impact within the community. Australia, like much of the developed world, has an ageing population, and conditions like dementia and Alzheimer's disease are becoming more widespread but still little talked about and discussed in public. Anne Cape is one of Australia's most highly regarded draftswomen and portrait artists with a distinguished career spanning 4 decades. Her daughter Sophie Cape has had a meteoric career since graduating from the National Art School in 2011. She's one of the leading contemporary artists of her generation. Together, these artists examine the emotional and psychological spaces that people with dementia inhabit, as well as those of their family, friends and loved ones.
The gallery asked Mum some years ago if she'd be interested in doing an exhibition about it.
And I have to say I procrastinated for a couple of years, I think, until Sophie came into the picture as well, and she was more enthusiastic about addressing the issue. It's not a comfortable issue to address, but she was challenged by it. And so we decided to go ahead.
It's understandable that you were reticent.
Well, it is, because my way of dealing with the situation is on a day-to-day basis. You live your life on just one day at a time, really. It's not because everybody's different. I learned from a course of people with the same type of dementia, a carers course that I went to. When we first went, we all wanted to know how, what, when and why. And it became very quickly obvious that there were no answers to this. There are so many different types of dementias, and everybody travels a different journey. You can't forecast. Some people it can be very, very quick journey, and others can go on for a very long time. And the only way to deal with that is on a day-to-day basis. So to actually come to explore this as a topic, I broadened the issue rather than my own personal experience. I had to look at different aspects of dementia with different people, and that was my way into the exhibition. And it is such a vast topic, really, that affects so many people in so many different ways. I think Sophie took a different approach to it.
The principle, I guess, for starting these works was personally based on direct experience, but I wanted it to be, I built up layers and layers and layers and used text and memories and my sort of experience, but then overlaid it again and again and again until it became more abstracted, and I wanted to be more sort of universal, I guess, in a way, so other people can access it and read into it their own stories, because I know everyone I know has been touched by some sort of mental health issue of some sort, and it is really prevalent in society today. And it's tough what the carers go through, and it's tough what they're actually personally going through, and those that live with it. And
I think one of the beautiful things about art is that you have the opportunity to transform adversity into the sublime, and to hopefully through the process, your journey that you go through in making the work and the exhibiting of it has a chance to, I guess, alter people's perspectives on the subject matter, on the issue, and perhaps give them a different point of view, and help with awareness within the community and those that see the show.
One of the things I think you've always said about your painting too is that you want to turn ugliness into something beautiful, something sublime. I don't know.
It's more that life contains both the beautiful and the ugly, horrific and the nice. It's not all roses, there is dark with the light, and it's always looking to find the combination of the two, the truth, I suppose, of our humanity.
I how can I describe it? Sophie's obviously works in a very abstract way. I think mine I've been a little bit more figurative and more literal with looking at the subject, which relates to the wow work anyway. And as I said, I've looked at different aspects, tried to look at different aspects of dementia. I mean, it's such a vast area. You can't touch on everything, but it's just an ongoing exploration, I think, and this is probably the starting point.
But I think where you portraying the carers, going into the nursing homes, and the way you've sort of ghosted figures over faces and things disappearing, it very much it's very moving, and it does make you pause and think about those people's situations and what they're going through, and hopefully, one thing you talk about is that you would like there to be some more understanding within the public sort of arena.
I think so. I think that maybe one of the worst things about this situation is for the sufferer is the isolation in the community, because they don't have the same faculties they had before, the same memory. They tend to be bypassed a bit, and I think it's their self-esteem suffers insofar as they have a terrible feeling of worthlessness. I think even just acknowledging and including these sort of individuals, just be inclusive with them, have a conversation, just acknowledge them. It means a lot to just their feelings of self-worth, and that people will engage with them still. And I think people probably feel a bit threatened by the situation sometimes. So, that it's a shame that happens, but it does, because people don't understand a lot of what it's all about, and no one does. But I just think we need to address this situation and do something about it.
This work is called Nurture, and it's about women and mothers and babies, and you often find in nursing homes women often revert to that situation. They're nurturing a child, which is usually a special doll that they're given, and they think this doll is a child. The figure in the middle is a Madonna and Child, a classic Madonna and Child, and the image of the doll, which, funnily enough, was one of my mother's dolls, a very old doll, but I have to say, pretty scary. It was all about the idea of dementia being pretty scary, really. And the blank panel on the end was just that empty void, that empty space. This is a work on its own. It's called Solitude, I think, and it's loosely based on someone that I know. I wanted a fading presence, just someone fading into this awful abyss of dementia. This work is called Dignity. I guess it came too from people in nursing homes when I was visiting there, and also around the death of my mother. We weren't there when she died, and when we came to visit, someone had actually placed a rose on her pillow, which was a very powerful sort of symbol. But it is about people fading away. Also the crosses, the trust and the hope and dignity were some of the things that I saw in the nursing home with some of these people suffering from dementia. It was just very, touching and amazing to see how some of them coped and how some of them didn't cope, and how alone some of them were. And I just think people, even if they are not, as good as they have been, they do need to be acknowledged. They do need to be cared for, and they need to feel that they have some worth still.
This, I know, is an abstract work to the audience, but this is actually a very personal self-portrait of the experience of dealing with dementia and how I felt about it, and the consequences, and the emotional upheaval, and the doubt, the sorrow, the hate, the love, the fear, all of those things. And it took a long time to make, and I did it outside in the elements on the ground and left it outside for about 3 months. So it kind of got mangled a bit by the wind and the rain, which made sense to me with regards to the issue. There are small elements all
attached throughout, collaged throughout the work, which are very personal references. Yes, the nexus of my inspiration was my father and my family and my personal experience, but I wanted it to present as a more universal experience so that others who may have dealt with this can read into it and understand and emotionally respond to their energy and the expression that's in the work.
This is a collaborative work that Sophie and I did. I guess I was the starting point. And because my work is far more figurative than Sophie's, although I wanted to work in an abstract way as well, I started with an image of a scan of Bill's brain. Most of that image has been obliterated by now, as Sophie's work process comes and goes, loses and destroys and then renews. But there is still vestiges of it. You could probably see if you're actually looking for it.
If you knew what to look for.
If you knew what to look for, yes. And the idea that the brain is a labyrinth, a form of labyrinth, and as well as dementia itself is something that is really hard to negotiate because then it is so different with everybody. Everybody is so different. It affects people in different ways, and there's so many different types of dementia. As I was taking a more general view of the situation rather than being quite so personal as Sophie has in her work.
It was an interesting process to go through because Mum and I, she's my mother, so of course I don't listen to anything she says. And so I really didn't think this was actually going to come off at all. But I worked through the night and she works through the day, and she to start with, she actually did the most beautiful sketch of the brain, and then the figures of the family behind it, very abstract and loose, which I thought was fabulous. And then she just said, I think maybe we could have a little red sort of thing over here. And of course I threw some red oxide over there, and it didn't quite do what I'd expected, which is normally fine for my process. But anyway, so I took it out of the studio and hit it with a hose, and of course all of Mum's work disintegrated off the canvas. So when she woke up in the morning, she was not happy. But this process continued, and it was like I destroy and then reinvent, and she's much cleverer at
Not
that
clever. I
that
just think
process.
so much.
But this is about the brain, the labyrinth of the brain, the unknown, how little we know about the brain. Yeah, there's so many things we could do to help this or stop this, but we just don't know enough. This is Dad as I see him now. It's been really intense. I living at home trying to help Mum with him, and then realising that I was actually making things worse. And reaching a point where I just detested who he had become and had forgotten who he was. But then having to stop and sit down and really think deeply about how it feels to him and what he's gone through, and the fear and the agony and the terror and the anxiety and the panic attacks and the depression, and because he's still very conscious of what's happening to him but doesn't understand it and doesn't sort of really believe it, and as a result his behaviour towards the rest of us is rough. And this is sort of the disintegration of him and the evaporation of his memories. So again, I started with text, and I've written over and over and over and over memories that he's lost, stories that he used to tell that are gone, friends he used to know that he doesn't remember anymore. And so the white is kind of the fogging out or the ghosting out of his past, and the horror of that, and his sort of face and personality and head kind of disintegrating into the atmosphere, I suppose, in a way.